I'm your hearing examiner this evening. The purpose of this hearing is to allow me to receive evidence and testimony on the matters that are pending. I make a recommendation only to the county commissioners. I do not make the final decision. I will be submitting my recommendation to staff within 2 weeks of this evening's hearing. The application will then be scheduled for deliberations before the county commissioners. If you wish to give testimony, I need you to fill out one of the sheets in the back, and they're identified by the case number. And when you come to the podium, please give your name and address for the record before you begin your testimony. First, staff will introduce the application, then we will hear from the applicant. After the applicant's testimony, we will then get into the public comment sheets. We will hear from those who are in favor, those who are neutral, and then those who are opposed. The public not speaking will be read into the record. We will then give the applicant or their representative an opportunity for rebuttal of any testimony stated into the record from the public before we close the public hearing. After that point, I will receive no more testimony. The time limits are 30 minutes for the applicant's presentation, 3 minutes for public testimony, and 15 minutes for applicant rebuttal. I would ask that you direct all of your testimony to me and not to the audience. Are there any questions regarding this evening's proceedings? Okay, then we will start this evening with case number CUP 23-0018.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. This is a request, case number CUP 23-0018, by City of Coeur d'Alene Water Department to construct a public utility complex facility on a quarter-acre parcel of land located in the agricultural suburban zone. Some history on this proposal. The most recent request for the same facility was approved in 2021 by the Board of County Commissioners at a site approximately a few blocks away from this current location. However, due to the steepness of the site, the city determined that it was infeasible for them to construct in that location, and they never pursued moving forward. So after a 2-year period of that approval, the project basically became null and void on that site. The city official contacted our office and they requested to pursue a conditional use permit on a different site, which is the subject of this request. It's located at the intersection of Millview Lane and Canal Street. It's just outside of the city near Blackwell Island. The site has an existing booster station. It's quite old, based on my conversation with Kyle Marine, who is the Water Department director. He advised me that based on his research, the old booster station has been on that site since the 70s, when the city acquired the water system, and it has been in disrepair and needs to be replaced based on its current condition and inability to provide adequate flow rate for the city residents. As I stated, the current zoning is agricultural suburban, and pursuant to our Land Use and Development Code, a public utility complex facility can be approved through a conditional use permit process. The comp plan designation is border. You have city limits just to the east of the subject property. The property is located within the City of Coeur d'Alene area of city impact. And during the agency comment period, we felt it was not necessary to solicit comments from the city, since the city is requesting this. As you can see, the property is fairly narrow. It's approximately 65 to 70 feet wide, and it does have an irregular shape on the front along the front property line. And according to our land use and development code, the minimum setback for all other structures that are not residential in nature or accessory to a residential structure or use shall have a minimum of a 30-foot rear and front yard setback. So the applicant, the city had asked whether they could pursue a variance as part of the conditional use permit process to allow them to encroach into the front and rear yard setback. And based on our code provisions, the applicant may request a deviation from the setback requirements as part of the conditional use permit process, as long as they meet the conclusions of law set forth for the variance requirements, along with the conditional use permit requirements. So the new facility will consist of approximately a 900 square foot booster station building. There will also be a standby generator, and then there will be a fence around the project area based on the Homeland Security requirements. So the applicants are proposing to have the front of the booster station building 15 feet from the front property line, as well as 20 feet from the rear property line, and they're requesting a 15-foot variance from the front yard and a 10-foot variance from the rear. There was also mention within the narrative that they're seeking a variance to the side yard setback to place this generator on site. Based on our communication with our building official, we determined that a standby generator, that it's first of all, it's not a permanent structure. It's a structure that can be moved. And moreover, it's considered to be equipment rather than a structure based on building code. Therefore, it does not require a setback variance and can be placed in the proposed location as shown on the site plan. These are some of the photos of the subject property in question. As you can see, there's I think that's the location, or that's the building where the old booster station is. The majority of the property is just vegetated. There's no other development except for the old booster station that's located in the, I believe, the northwest corner of the property. We asked Water District Director to give us photos of some similar structures in the area so that we have a better understanding, and as well as the public, to know and understand what the future structure would look like. This is one of the photos. I believe we got another one, but this is a building that would likely be constructed on the subject property with a generator on site as well. During the agency comment period, we solicited comments from all the agencies with jurisdiction. One of the concerns that was raised by the Post Falls Highway District is they were not sure where the location of the right-of-way line is in relation to the existing property lines. The applicant did submit a revised site plan that provided a little bit more detail to show or depict the location of the property lines as well as the structure. And the highway district official requested that at the time of building permit application, not at the time of building permit application, at the time of site disturbance permit application, that they receive a sealed and signed site plan from their surveying and engineering company. I'd like to add that this structure does not require a building permit because according to building code, any structures that are related to municipal infrastructure do not require a building permit, and that's strictly out of the building code. Every other agency was in support of this, and there appears to be no issue with those agencies. During the public comment period, there were a total of 4 comments. 1 was in opposition, 1 was neutral, and 2 comments were received from, I believe, a couple that raised concerns with the proposed improvements and whether or not some of the existing vegetation on site would be removed to expose the new structure and potentially impact the adjoining property. I believe these individuals are here in the audience, and they will provide their testimony. They also submitted photos of the current landscaping on site of the subject property and how it may impact their residence or their property. So when it comes their time to speak, I will introduce those photos into the record. However, overall, we find that the proposal is a necessity for the city to provide adequate water service to city residents, and it's something that needs to be done according to the needs of the city. So I don't have anything else to add unless you have any questions for me.
Not at this time. Thank you, Vlad. And we'll hear from the applicant.
Hello, I'm Kyle with the City of Coeur d'Alene Water Department. I am Director of the Water Department. We're here presenting for a booster station. The basic need for this is a replacement of an outdated booster station. Vlad pretty much hit on all the topics. Basically, what we're working for is we need to replace existing booster station with a like station that can meet the existing needs. There is no design for this to add growth. It is only designed to feed the existing customers and designated lots that are up there. So we have no goal in expansion in any of this area. We placed the building as closely as we could in the middle lot to meet as much of the standard setbacks as possible. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet the criteria exactly. We do hope, if this does get approved, that the building can shrink some and fit better within those setbacks. But unfortunately, during construction, you might have to adjust things one way or the other. The goal also would be to leave as much of the trees as possible. I know there's some concerns with the neighbors on removing those. I agree with that. Our goal as a utility is to blend in and disappear. As you can see from the pictures from the existing station, it has multiple trees around it and shrubs. And the other picture that was there is another station that we have that we recently constructed. It was built into the hillside. We try to blend in with landscaping and disappear. One of the concerns with a lot of the different areas is the generators. Sometimes there can be a little bit noisy. We do have an existing generator on site. It would be replaced with a new generator if this approved. It does have a sound enclosure on it. We try to keep the decibel level as low as possible. And then I'll stand for any questions.
Could you I'm just curious, what does a booster station do and how does it work?
Absolutely. So with our water system in the city of Coeur d'Alene, we have wells that pull out of the aquifer and they feed into the system and our tanks. When you have hillsides in different parts of the area, the water goes up the hillside above that tank level, so we can't push water up there. So the booster stations take the existing pressure at the level they're at and push it up the hillside to the customers at an adequate pressure.
So this is just replacing for the basic, all the gear that's in this current building with a new building, maybe some new gear as well. No transmission lines or distribution lines are being affected by this at all, right?
So no, we would have to install a transmission main, but we have part of one that went down the hill, down the road from here. We'd end up abandoning the existing transmission main and convert it over to the other transmission main. So if this is approved, we would continue with moving a transmission main down the roadway, tying into our existing water line to push up the hill. And then there is a transmission main that runs up the hill from this booster station that actually runs through some property without easements. We'd like to get it out of their property so we don't impede them any further, is the goal.
Okay. And your generator, is it like a diesel generator?
Yes, ma'am. We looked to get a gas-powered one or natural gas or propane. Unfortunately, the size of generator that's needed for this site, they don't make generators of this size that are propane or natural gas. So we have to utilize a diesel generator.
So you're testing it like what, once a month?
Yeah, it automatically runs once a month. One of the issues that we have on this current site is as soon as they lose power, everybody above the hill is out of water instantly because we have no tanks or backup flow up there. So we have the generator up there with an ATS, which is an automatic transfer switch. It'll kick on and they may be out of water for a couple of seconds before that kicks on and starts pushing water back up the hill. So our goal is to basically recreate everything that's there in a new facility. We have multiple issues with that site. It's outdated. It needs multiple upgrades. We had to be careful on what upgrades that we do to the current site because it brings in new codes, and then we're going to end up rebuilding everything anyways. So the goal is to rebuild it before it goes down.
And is there some central point that the city monitors all of this stuff?
Yeah, so we have a SCADA system. I can get into great detail if you'd like, but we have a SCADA system, and basically it's a big brain that collects from all the sites and tells us what's going on. So we have 11 booster stations, we have 5 tank sites, or I'm sorry, we have 11 well sites, we have 5 tank sites, and we have 5 booster stations. They all come back to a central brain where we can watch them on a computer, and they send us alarms or call us if there's any issues. This site has a cell card in it. If it goes down, it will call one of my operators to maintain that site or at least check on it to make sure everything's working properly.
Okay, thank you.
You betcha.
All right, public comment. I have Diana Nottage, neutral, possibly, or opposed, wishes to speak.
Thank you. I'm Diana Nottage. I live 2 houses down from this. I built the original house that the easement or the water line now goes through, and I've worked with the city quite a bit on problems and issues concerning that easement. I've had wonderful conversations with Kyle. I think this is a win-win for all of us in a lot of ways, in the fact that they will abandon their current pipeline going through property. I also think that it would be a good idea to approve the 15-foot easement in front and have it closer to the road. The building next to it to the north is already got a 15-foot easement, so it would be kind of aligned with that. I would hope that they don't need the easement in the back, as it will affect property behind it. There's a very secluded little cabin back there that their way of life will be affected, and we're all neighbors. And I feel like they have assured us that they're going to do the very best they can to keep it a low-profile building. The building we're shown was a 2-story building almost, which would not fit in with the profile. The current pump station is just a little 1-story shack. They've assured us that once everything's working, that they're going to demolish that and not just leave it abandoned. But I feel like I'm really neutral or for what they're doing. We all need water. I understand their problem. I've worried from the beginning about the overreach from the city of Coeur d'Alene into a county residential area and the possibility of annexation, which we haven't wanted. And I understand why they bought the water system and did what they did, but I just want to express my concerns about annexation and opening the door to that. This area is listed in the 10-year annexation plan from the city, and I just think that would be a detriment to the neighborhood, both for services and costs and several things. I feel like if we could see what the building's going to look like, it's kind of the cart before the horse to me. It's like we're going to say, yes, this is a good idea, but what are we really looking at other than all we're addressing is the approval of change in easements? And I just want to see that it is a low-profile building and that they remove as few trees as possible and fits in with the neighborhood. So I would be for it or neutral, but I just feel like it's conditional, my approval, because I don't feel like I have full information, although they've done the best they could to tell us their plans.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Colleen? Rubish?
Can Dan Robish go first?
Rubish?
Robish, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Neutral and wishes to speak.
We're conditionally neutral.
Okay.
My name's Dan Robish, and we own the property at 906 South Canal Street, which is a rental unit, but we've owned it for over 30 years. So we're familiar with Diana and the neighbors and the other people. And I've worked with Vlad a little bit and Kyle. And we're not here to oppose it and stop it. We're sympathetic to, you know, the homeowners. We just want a win-win. And I have to agree with Diana, we don't see enough information for this planning. And it's not all bad, but I would like to specifically request 2 conditions of approval for this permit before it goes further. And I'm trying to use terminology that I told you might understand, because I don't understand it all. But one is pump noise, okay? Pump noise and generator noise could potentially be intrusive and very impactful to my property, okay? With the setbacks you guys are requesting, your building will be 30 feet from my building. That's the distance of that laptop to that wall, okay? Using the setbacks you're requesting. That's a picture taken from down on the road, and that's our cabin up there. Thanks, God, for posting that. And there's a natural ecological barrier that separates, that's right along our property lines. And it's composed of bushes and trees. That's from our driveway, and there's a cabin on the left. And believe it or not, that rooftop's only 12 feet to the property line, which is the trees on the right, those 2 trees, about there. And then it goes down about 15 feet, and it goes down to the lot that they're talking about. So there's a natural barrier here. And so pump noise could really be a problem. We don't know how big these pumps are. We don't know how loud they are. And how often will that generator fire up? If it was a couple times a year, we can get through that. But I don't see anything in the environmental planning talking about noise levels. He mentioned that, well, they'll be as quiet as possible. Well, if you're sleeping in that cabin and you hear those pumps through the walls and their high-pitched whines, you're not going to be very comfortable. Now, the existing pump station is down on the corner of the lot, and we don't hear those, okay? So I'm wondering how much sound deadening is there going to be in the building and protection from the generator when it kicks on. I don't see any of that environmentally listed in the planning. And that's a big concern of us is pump noise. You can see you wouldn't want to be in bed at night that far away and hear a and pumps going Those pumps kick on and off all the time. Okay, now the current pumps, I can only hear when I get like within 10 feet of the building. Okay, I don't know if those are smaller pumps. It's just that noise is a concern, so we'd like to see that addressed so that our property doesn't have that negative impact of noise. Okay, the second condition of approval for the permit I'd like to request is a detailed landscape plan. And what we would like to maintain that natural buffer, because otherwise we're going to come out on porch right here and look at the top part of the structure right there. The current lot design has a fence going around the whole perimeter. And to do that, you have to go down the property line and knock down 15 trees that are like 80, 100 feet tall and all the bushes. So I've talked to Kyle. If we could negotiate that the fencing does not go around the whole property, but stays on the flat to protect the assets, that natural foliage can be protected and won't be taken out. And then we could stand on our porch and not really see the building. So those are the 2 things I'm addressing is what are we going to see and what are we going to hear? And I like to formally request a condition of approval for a detailed landscape plan that shows where the fencing actually goes instead of around the whole thing, and that all this foliage can be maintained. It says it will be to as much as possible in the planning, but that is not in agreement with the design that's shown where the fence is currently in the planning.
Okay.
So those are my two requests. Thank you very much.
Sandra Marlowe, neutral, does not wish to speak. Okay, do we have anyone, and that's all I have in terms of public comment sheets here.
She just wanted me to go first.
I wanted him to go first because he had.
Oh, well, he kind of used your time.
Oh.
Do you have something in addition, some other point?
I guess, well, I guess I have one thing to go, one thing in addition, so I'll be
Okay,
very
name
short.
and address
quick.
for the,
Oh, so my name is
Record.
Colleen Robish, 18801 East Terrapin Lane, but that's our home address
Okay.
in Otis Orchards, but we own the property that Dan discussed. I guess I would ask a question. When will this go before the Board of County Commissioners? Because I guess, we've asked for a landscape plan or some kind of, kind of accountability, because Kyle has been great to communicate with, but I feel like, okay, if this gets approved, it goes out of our hands, and how do we, make sure that this landscape is preserved? Because that's kind of an issue close to my heart.
okay. All right,
Okay?
thank you. Do we have anyone on Zoom on this matter?
We do.
Okay,
Go ahead and unmute yourself and announce your name and address before you start.
Well, this is the Bailey family. This is Michael and Jessica Bailey. We live at 1215 South Millview, and we are the adjoining neighbors, in fact, quite close to the proximity of the current pump station, and the adjoining neighbors of Colleen and Dan, and Diana Nottage sold us our home very graciously, and we are all a member of an HOA that is quite impacted by this endeavor. I'd like to first commend Kyle Marine. He's just been incredible throughout this whole process of being just a really, really open, transparent, kind, and took time to, out of his day, his very busy schedule, to bring him and his right-hand man in and afford us a meeting, explained it incredibly well, did a very good job, and I have the utmost trust in him and his staff to do the right thing in this. I do also want to make sure that we know that as we are a member of this HOA, and Diana is our president, Diana Nottage and Mel Nottage that are there, I think, in person, that we do have concerns. Obviously, this impacts our property and our neighbors, and we have a very, very good group of people that live on this street, and we're all completely in continuous of not damaging the wildlife. We have a lot of wildlife trails. We have a lot of what would you say, landscaping, but it's not really landscaping. We'd like to keep it wild. Well, the across the street property is also a BLM property that's maintained. That lot has been owned by the BLM, so for access to water for the wildlife that transfers through our property. We have wildlife trails that are established. We would love to see that. Kyle has assuaged my fears, my wife's fears, of making sure that will be minimally impacted by doing this. But we also want to say that we feel like this is a necessity. When you have a pump station that's been in since 1973, a 51-year-old pump station, machines don't last forever. We're acutely aware of that. As far as noise, we're also acutely aware. Right after we purchased the property from Diana, we were made aware that they had a few runs with that diesel generator that lasted for days, and we thought, oh my gosh, what did we do? We bought this property next to a diesel generator. Now, since then, they've resolved a lot of problems, but we do understand that this pump station is aged and it needs to be replaced. There's a point there where we have to break some eggs to make an omelet, I think Kyle's doing an incredible job, just a wonderful job of attending to that. I trust him. I've spoken to him. I believe he's a good man. I believe he will do his best to keep this as minimally impactful as possible. But of course, trust and verify, and I believe that's, my other HOA members have already spoken to that. We don't want to just give a blank check and make sure, and then everyone start knocking down trees and wrecking wildlife and putting up 2-story buildings, and we don't care for that, if you wouldn't mind. But we do feel like he's a good man and a good, a very honest person in this endeavor. Setbacks and distance, we're probably the most impacted because it's closest to our building. It's literally across the driveway from our garage, and we feel like the noise can be a problem. I was very interested to hear the sound. This is something we hadn't thought of until this meeting. The sound enclosure was something we hadn't brought up, and I'm glad to hear the fellows bring that up as far as part of the build. I do want to be very, very clear that is, we are all in the county. We do not wish this to be part of a greater expansion of homeowners up the street or up the hill or any other direction. Kyle's told us very clearly that's not the case. We do not wish this to be a part of a greater annexation process. We are not interested in that at all. And that if we can minimize any impact on that or be helpful in that way, we would really, really, really like to be a good sort of neighbor in that. While we recognize what the difficulties that they're going to have to go through in implanting this, but we also recognize the fact that we do not have any choice. We have to have water, and machines fail, and soon we'll be without water.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on Zoom?
If you're on Zoom and would like to speak to this item, please unmute yourself and give us your address and go ahead.
Okay, then we'll take applicant rebuttal.
First off, I don't really want to rebuttal anything. I mean, I hear their concerns. We want to do the best to be good neighbors. A couple things that I heard that I wanted to bring up and just follow up on is sound. I understand that the building would be a brick building. We try to keep things and all the sound inside the building as best we can. With the generator, it's the direction we normally go is with a CAT generator, and they build a sound enclosure on a skid that sits on the property. It's as quiet as we can get it. I don't know the decibels offhand, but we do the best we can to keep them quiet, and we order them that way with the sound enclosure to help with that. The generator would only run once a month, as the existing generator does for maintenance. Only other time it would run is when there was a power outage and it is needed, and it would be during the day on a set time. The size of the building, our goal is to have as small as building as possible. We're not building this booster station to add any more pumps to serve any more customers than what's already designated to. So it would not designed to add any additional pumps in the building. It would only be designed to meet current codes of what we have. Early renditions of it, I don't have any early renditions of the design or the pictures of the building, but the pumps in the station, what's required from DEQ and EPA is, I believe, is 3 pumps and a fire pump is what's minimum for code to meet what we currently have. In the existing building, we have 3 pumps and a fire pump, but they are undersized. So the new building would have slightly larger pumps on VFDs, which is a variable frequency drive type of pump. And the current pumps in the building do turn on and off on occasion, but because there's no tank on the site, we have no reserve water up there. So one pump is consistently running. It just ramps up and down. We do the best we can to insulate the building to keep the sound enclosure. If anybody would be interested, I'd be more than willing to take them to other booster stations to show them how the sound is on those sites as well. I do not have a decimal on that, though. Other concerns that I heard was the trees. I really hear their concerns on that. Construction is unfortunate. It does clear some areas of the property where we're looking to build the existing or the future building if approved, but the goal would be to keep as many trees as possible. We like to blend in and disappear, like I said, multiple other sites. You can come in my office. I have multiple pictures of our existing buildings in different areas. We try to blend in. We try to look like houses in the neighborhood. Our tanks, if they're up in the trees, are painted an OD green to blend in. The tanks on the prairie are painted to match the skyline. It's an industrial building, unfortunately. It doesn't have a lot of windows. It's not real pretty. Our goal is to make it disappear. And then for the fence line, absolutely. That's an easy agreement. We try to keep a minimal spot to maintain around the building, but we do have to fence it off per state rules and regulations for security issues, especially for a utility with everything's going on in the country. So I do have to fence it off, but the fencing size could greatly be reduced, and that's not a problem, and I'd actually prefer that. And just to be clear up front, the city is not interested in this booster station. We'd rather not have it. It costs us more money to pump water over there than what we would prefer. I know the city bought it years ago. Unfortunately, I don't think it worked out well for them. So the amount of money that we're looking to invest into this building, we'll never get the money back out over there. I mean, it's a $2 million building and upgrades just to a booster station. The customers over there, we can never put that cost onto them. So unfortunately, we'll never get our money back out of the upgrades. And if there was another way or another direction that we could go, I am all ears. I even looked at seeing if another water system on that side would be interested in taking it over. They said, absolutely, you build us a new booster station, replace all the pumps, about $10 million worth of upgrades, and we'll take it. Unfortunately, I can't get that to sell with the city. So, and then landscaping plan. Some of the stuff in the building design doesn't get fine detailed until approved, because once I hire an engineer, we're going to invest about $100,000 in the design. That's not something we like to put a bunch of money towards ahead of time until it's approved. But I do hear the concerns, and I'd be more than willing to have the neighborhood involved in some of the design and layout of the building. I am limited on some stuff because I have to follow DEQ and EPA regulations.
So the pumps that are currently in this building are elderly like the building?
Yes.
Is it reasonable to assume that new pumps have learned how to insulate themselves better so that they might not be as noisy as old pumps?
Yes, I mean, I would definitely agree with the neighbors on the concern for noise. I don't think there's going to be an issue, but I understand that's hard to swallow when somebody says, I don't think it's going to be an issue. We could definitely look at it. Different pumps have different frequencies and different pitches. Some people can hear them, some people cannot. I can't guarantee that there'd be no noise, but I could tell you that the noise would be very, very minimal. With a new building and the pumps that we're looking at, it'd be fairly quiet, and I'd almost say you couldn't hear it unless you're within 5 or 10 feet of the building. The generator, on the other hand, is going to make some noise. We do the best we can to keep them quiet. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of technology to quiet them much more than what they are, but we do order them as quiet as we possibly can. But as a new booster station at any facility, per DEQ and EPA standards, when I design a booster station or a well site, it's required to have a generator.
And what's the reason in this case for it to be separate from the building?
Maintenance. If it fails, I've got if the generator, you're speaking specifically to generator, if a generator is in a building or enclosed in it and it goes bad, I have to tear part of the building down to replace it, especially this size. If it was a smaller one, it might be accommodatable, but we keep them on skids so we can replace them easy if something happens, and it's considered a mobile. We order them with a double wall fuel tank, so it's self-contained. Otherwise, you have to build a trough and a draining area for them. So we set them separate. It's easier to maintain. It's safer for our operators to not be in the building with the generator running in case something shuts down and there's a failure. It sits by itself. It's safety, and it's just common practice for us of what we do for our existing infrastructure.
So in the diagram that we had up there, it looked like it was quite a distance away from the building. proposed
and-
building.
And the location of the generator is not set in stone. We would want it close enough to where we could have a maintenance truck pull off the road into the driveway and be able to work on the generator.
Yeah.
We don't want to park on the road and have to run something back and forth to it. We always have an area where they can pull off. We want it inside of our fenced area. We've looked at putting it on the north side, on the south side. The exact location hasn't been determined, but it would be within that footprint of the setbacks.
And with regard to the fencing,
Yes, ma'am.
I'll say it my way and see if it's still correct. You are required to fence the booster station, the house, and have it locked, I guess. But it's going to be as close to the building as it can be, as opposed, you're not fencing the site
No, ma'am.
property, you're fencing just the equipment building
Correct.
and the generator.
That would be the goal, yes. A lot of people don't like to see them, so we fence off the entire property and close it. This community would rather have it minimal. I have no problem with that. Well sites, I won't get all the details, are a little bit different. I do have to have a certain amount of security so many feet from the well. This is a booster, so it doesn't fall in that category, so I can easily move that. We'd want enough room around the building to paint it and maintain the building and, 5 feet or something like that around the building, except for the side where we access it to pull pumps and motors in and out if needs be.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, Vlad? Okay.
I would like to point out a couple of conditions of approval that we prepared in the staff report. While writing the staff report, myself and the planning manager for our division, Ben Tarbutton, who's here tonight as well, thought about the potential impacts with the perimeter fence and the need to remove a significant amount of vegetation. And we specifically drafted a condition of approval 8.07 in the staff report that says the applicant shall install a site obscuring fence around the project area in order to comply with the Homeland Security Act. Project area does not imply perimeter fence. If we said perimeter fence, it would be along the property lines. So we were cognizant of the fact that we need to retain as much vegetation as possible to obscure the new building, as well as retain a vegetative buffer between the adjoining neighbors. And the condition above that, 806, states that the applicant shall retain the site's natural vegetation to the greatest extent possible, is clearly to leave what's there and remove very little around the project area and have the fence only around the building and the generator. So we consider that as one of the mitigating factors to retain as much vegetation on the site as possible, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. Then that concludes our hearing on case number CUP 23-0018. We will now move on to case number VAR 23-0005.
For the record, once again, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. This is, just a second, I'll close the door.
Okay.
This is a request by Bob and Ann Nash, Living Trust, Revocable Living Trust. The property owners are requesting 3 different variances with this request, 1 to the front and 2 to side yard setbacks. The subject property is located on the east side of Hayden Lake, The property is zoned restricted residential and is approximately a third of an acre in size. As you can see, based on the this Google 3D aerial overlay map, the property does have some steep slopes. It's towards the lake. There's an existing cabin on the property. If you can see where I'm pointing with the laser, there's an existing cabin on the property which currently does not meet the setback requirement. The requested variances are in order to being able to expand the existing footprint of the non-conforming structure. As you can see, the minimum setback requirements in the restricted residential zone are 25 feet from the front, 10 on the side, and 25 on the rear. These are some of the photos of the existing cabin on the property. This is the front of the residence. This is the side where the property is, the structure is within 4 feet of the property line. The front of the cabin is right on the property line, so this shed that Mr. Nash currently owns is encroaching into the Water's Edge Court private right-of-way. This is the rear of the property where the applicant is proposing to expand their building. Further down, there's the location of the existing septic system on the property. This is the view of the cabin from the rear as you look from the lake, as you're looking from the lake. So these are the existing conditions of the property here. There's the overall site plan, and this is the close-up detail of the existing cabin. As I stated, it's right on the property line on the front and 4 feet on the side. And the intent of the applicant is to be able to renovate the existing portion of the cabin as well as expand on the rear. They would retain the same plane and extend the new expansion area 4 feet from the east property line, and they would not be building any closer than the structure already is, but they do want to expand on the west side and be 9 feet 2 inches from the west property line. The code states that if the applicant is requesting a variance of less a foot or less, then they could go through an administrative exemption approval and have the director approve it. It's like it's $100 fee where they pay and they get a variance without having to go through a formal review process. We decided it was unnecessary for us to have the applicant go through a separate review process, and so we wrapped it. We included the third variance as part of this application to just streamline the process and make the appropriate findings for the hearing body to make a decision. So, in essence, they would be seeking a 25-foot variance to the 25-foot front yard setback variance in the restricted residential zone. They would be seeking a 6-foot variance on the side, on the east, along the eastern property line, but they would not be further encroaching or maximizing the encroachment into that side yard property line, and then a 10-inch encroachment on the west side of the property.
What's the size of the addition?
We'll have a time for public.
During the public agency comment period, we went through through our standard protocol of soliciting comments from all the agencies. No one had any issue. The only unique situation in this case is that the applicant has applied for an incinerator toilet rather than the expansion of the existing drain field on the property to accommodate any additional bedrooms that would be constructed within the structure, because the sizing of the drain field is based on the number of sleeping areas versus the number of bathrooms. So they requested that they have an incinerator toilet. I have not had the discussion with the owner what the intent of the drain field is. However, it's further downhill, and I don't know if it has any relevance, but just wanted to give you a heads up that this is somewhat unique on what they're doing. So during the public comment period, we did not receive any comments in opposition of this request. I did do a site visit and spoke with the adjoining neighbor who raised some concerns. He's here tonight and he'll have an opportunity to speak before you. We did find that the narrowness and the steepness of the property does lend itself to undue hardship, and that the expansion, based on the current location of the cabin, makes it difficult to develop expand the structure elsewhere on site. With that, I don't have anything else to add. I don't know if Mr. Nash or his wife are here on Zoom or here present. I left a voice message with them, but have not heard back. So I don't know if they're here tonight to represent themselves.
Okay, thank you, Vlad.
Okay.
What do you think, David?
Well, if there's anyone on Zoom that wants to speak to this issue, now would be a good time.
I'm here.
But you're a
Yeah, no problem.
neighbor.
I just want to know.
Yeah, okay. All right, then we'll hear public testimony. I have Travis Vanguard, Vanderpool.
Hi.
Wow, how do you get that out of that scribble?
I used to be a doctor.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Who's opposed and wishes to speak?
I appreciate everybody, and I know it's difficult or whatever, but I'm right next to the property. And first and foremost, I don't want all the Hayden cabins to be built into mansions. In this scenario, what is the square footage addition? 4,200 square feet? Why do we need a 6,500 square foot house with a 3-bedroom drain field that was remitted to a 2-bedroom drain field because in 1996 it got blown out and then went into foreclosure. In 2000 it was fixed again, but that only lasted 4 years. And in 2005 they remitted it to a 2-bedroom to this, and it's probably built onto my lot within inches. Because I talked to the guy that installed it a long time ago, even though Panhandle does not have the as-built, surprisingly. So I've been trying to get a well site on my place for 7 years, and I built a regular house on a regular lot without tearing down a cabin. I like the area now, and I don't want my one neighbor's, I don't want all the cabins to go away and all the history to go away, and all we're left is 7,000 square foot houses with 15 exercise rooms and an incinerator. Also, across the street, there's the other half of my drain field that's available with a 3-bedroom drain field design that I've talked to Bob and the previous owner of this house too, before they sold it to him, to negotiate with the guy and buy the other half of it. Neither of them would. The first person cost them $100,000 because these people bought it with a 2-bedroom drain field. These people won't do it either, and all of a sudden now they're wanting to do an incinerator, and across the street they sold that drain field to some homeless guy that's moved on to it, and now we have a big problem in the whole community that no one wants to ignore, and Panhandle doesn't want to, they don't want to handle their jurisdiction. I hate to say it. It's different than the health district where I'm from. It's different here. If you put it, I mean, is this a mild remodel like the one next door that's 6,000 square feet addition? And also, why isn't there a critical drain plan? I have a 3,200 square foot house and I had to do a critical drain with a bond, with everything. This guy builds a 6,000 square foot house next to me, and it's a 3-bedroom drain field from 1976 that supports 6 people on the as-built, and it's been blown out 3 or 4 times because he's been vacation rental in it for 20 years. So, and now he's trying to sell it for $4.7 million, and my taxes are going up, and I just want to be here enjoying my life, right? Now this is going to happen to me on the other side. Why not make them, they're going to spend $1.5 million, and they're going to put it on a Blackwell foundation that's 4 foot from the deal. It's going to pack both those other lots that are in. It's going to pack both those other lots, and they're both very challenging to build on, because I built on one that's less challenging than them, but it's challenging. They don't have a spot for a well. They don't have, they got someone on their drain field that they bought that there's all sorts of problems here that Panhandle could have handled and said, hey, you need to buy this drain field if you want to do it. But why not make them, if they're going to spend $1.5 million, why not make, I can know the county wants to approve the variance because it's $1,000 for them and it's existing. And it's $500 for the variance that I applied for, that they can apply for and get to, right? Why shouldn't they pay the $500 I did? right? So why not make them do it right? Why does it got to be 6,900 square feet? Why can't it be a 4,000 square foot place and they get rid of the block wall foundation, put it in a conforming setting? It'll be worth more money. It'll be better for the county. Make them do a critical site plan because we already got problems with the lake clarity and stuff like that. And incinerator? I mean, again, there is another way. And Panhandle said, we're this, and then now you sue them to whatever. And these people are, I don't get why do you need a 7,000 square foot second home when you live in Washington? Why? Come on. I know you're the president of some church school, but I don't care. I just really want to protect Idaho. And there's enough in the county that has changed to more California influence and Seattle influence where I left from. And I don't want it. I don't like it. Don't need it. Don't need a 7,000 square foot house to me. Everybody goes, oh, you're going to get rich when you sell it. I didn't do my house to get rich. I did it to be nice, have fun, enjoy this area and the hospitality of the people. And I'm telling you, if this continues and Panhandle can approve these things without having some teeth, like in where I'm from, if you put a new 2x4 in the building, you need to do the drain field up to new codes because you just extended the life of the building. So if it doesn't happen from the initial, the core part of it, all we're going to be left with is 7,000 square foot places, no cabins, and a bunch of rich people that live here part-time, and they take all the money out of the state if they're making it. So
thank you.
I want to know if this gets approved, that there is going to be a condition of critical site with a $5,000 bond and approval by the county, and get a critical site engineer like I did, go through the process, and then after a year after it's done, you can get your $5,000 back. And also the neighbor next to me needs to do it too.
Okay.
Why isn't there is there any way I can
I have to cut your time off.
Is there any way I can put that into that to where that's noted that
I've heard your testimony. It will go into the record. It will be in our minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the well site, I guess my last question is to them, and I guess maybe it's a Panhandle question, but no one's even seen one of these incinerators. Does this all of a sudden change the fact that I've got a non-conforming drain field there that I couldn't get set back, and they retracted the variance that they told me about to get my well? Does this incinerator thing, if they approve all this stuff that I don't want, if they approve it all, does that mean that all of a sudden I get my well spot because this retarded system that's been retracted and recanted and whatever is not in use now? Or
Okay.
would I have to ask Panhandle?
We've recorded your testimony. Thank you.
So you're not going to answer how I address that part of it?
I am not going to right now, no.
Okay, because Panhandle doesn't give me a straight answer. They don't tell me the truth. So the county's never lied to me. They've been great about everything, but Panhandle doesn't tell me the truth and has retracted variances and stuff that so I don't trust that I go there and I get a good answer. So, but you're not going to give me an answer either,
Madam
right?
Chair,
Okay, it's,
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
the speaker needs to realize we have time limits. We've
Yeah.
way exceeded those time limits, and the
be
staff
nice
is
to
more
answer.
than happy to answer his questions after the hearing.
there you go. Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. Still nobody on Zoom.
I just had a public comment.
Could,
Please announce yourself and give us your address.
Hello, my name is Brandon Dugan. I'm on the North Shore tracks as well. I'm lot 3, just directly to the side of the property from that picture right there, just directly to the right. I'll be, I think, affected with that 4-foot variance. My biggest question, which maybe you can answer this afterwards for me, I'm not there, but is my future build going to be affected for a setback because of that 4-foot variance, or am I just going to continue with the regular, I think it's a 25-foot setback from the property line, or does that change my ability to build close to that property line?
Vlad?
I can address
He needs to get steps in, I bet.
Madam Hearing Examiner, I understand the question that's being posed by the adjoining property. I believe, if I am not mistaken, the property is directly to the east of the subject site. A variance on this site should not, or on any site, should not have any detrimental impact on the adjoining parcels of land. If this individual is seeking a building permit on his parcel of land, he will have to comply with the underlying setbacks of the restricted residential zone. However, if he finds it that he's unable to meet those setback requirements and he can meet the criteria for the approval of a variance, which requires assessment of undue hardship based on physical characteristics of the site, as well as the request not being self-imposed, staff would consider it and take it through the same course of action as this request tonight. And then he would have a determination at the end of the process. But as it stands, this variance should not have an impact on the adjoining parcel, and the adjoining parcel owner would have to comply with the prescribed setbacks in the restricted residential zone.
Okay, thank you, Vlad.
Madam Chair, I would
Yes.
just clarify, you can strike the should. It cannot affect the adjacent property.
Yes. Okay. So did somebody else
We
just sign
had
on?
somebody new sign on to,
Which I believe is the applicant.
oh, so I think we're okay.
Mr. Nash, is that Mr. Nash?
Right
It says
there.
Nash.
That's the applicant, I
So,
believe.
Mr. Nash, did you want to comment on your case?
Yes, we didn't know there was a case. We didn't get any notification there was anything going on tonight. So we haven't been able to hear anything that's been happening.
So we did notify via mail the public hearing.
Here, button.
Community Development did the legal notice, and the owner was notified along with the adjacent property owners of the public hearing that was coming tonight. And we did send out notice by mail on,
Did you send it to our residents up in Hayden, or did you send them to our normal address in Tri-Cities?
so the mail went out on May 16th of this year. I would have to look at the file where the mail went out to, but it's based on the information that the assessor has for the current owner.
Well, we never got anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what
So
do we do from here?
So
We didn't even know that we found out there's a sign going up in our yard too, and we had no idea about that either.
I was at the property, I'd like to point out that I was at the property, and
We can always postpone and bring it back.
If that's what they would like to do.
and I posted it.
Well, I'm just saying we didn't know about any of this stuff that was going on. Nothing.
Madam Chair, given the circumstances, my suggestion, if the applicants are okay with it, is that we postpone this to another regular hearing and let them come back and make their presentation.
I think that sounds like a fine idea. Are you all right with that, Nashes?
Sure. Yeah.
And our apologies.
Okay.
So can we find out anything about what has been said so far?
Everything is of public record. We can actually give you a copy of the YouTube video.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So that concludes for now our hearing on case number VAR 23-0005. Yes.
So would we have to,
Come back, or is it my testimony okay? If it's postponed?
David.
The testimony that's taken in counts. This would be a continued public hearing, but since we don't have a date certain, I think we'll re-advertise.
Okay. So you'll know if it's going to happen, but otherwise we've got your testimony.
Okay, so if
How long will this take?
Sorry,
Hang on, please. We'll do one person at a time.
I have someone in the audience who is here, and he was asking questions.
If I can't be out of town in business, will my testimony?
Yes, it's in the record.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And the Nashes, did you have something else to add?
How long will this take?
Vlad will work with you and our administrative staff, but we have an idea. Is it August? August 1st is the next possible date.
But do you want to do it on my night?
Yes, I do. So it'd be August 15th. Does that work for you, Mr. and Ms. Nash?
Sure. I just didn't realize it was going to go all drawn out over the summer. So basically we can't do anything that was been planned up until we hear from you guys from August 15th, right?
You can't pull a building permit until this is resolved.
All right. Okay. Great. Okay.
All right. Okay, then this officially concludes VAR 23-0005. Now we're moving on to VAR 23-0012. Thank you.
View our screen share. Go ahead and click on that. And then select which one you want. Is that it? David Carr. And then you can just make it view slideshow from the beginning. There you go. And then you click up and down.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Joseph Foudy with Kootenai County Community Development. This is a request by the applicant, Don Carr, for a variance to the rear and side yard setbacks for a parcel in the restricted residential zone. If I can get it to work. Okay, the subject property is located in the unincorporated geographical area of Bayview, as indicated on this screen. More specifically, the subject property is located between North Hollyhock Street and North Bardell Street, both of which are private roads within the jurisdiction of Timberlake Fire. Furthermore, the subject property is located south of East Perimeter Road, a public road in the jurisdiction of Lakes Highway District. As mentioned previously in other hearing tonight, the setbacks for the restricted residential zone are as such: front yard being 25 feet, side yard 10 feet, rear yard also 25 feet. The subject property highlighted in red on the screen is approximately 3,005 square feet, or 0.069 acres in size. The minimum lot size in the restricted residential zone is 8,250 square feet, or roughly 0.189 acres. Article 2.4, subsection 82404A of the restricted residential zone states that parcels created prior to January 3rd, 1973, which are less than 8,250 square feet in size, shall be regarded as conforming parcels for purposes of this title. Through staff research through the project, staff discovered that according to assessor records, a manufactured home had been issued a building permit and placed on the parcel in 1971. It was placed approximately, and I'm going to go to the next slide. So, as you can see here, the manufactured home was placed approximately 5 feet from the south-facing property line, which is the bottom. I'm not really sure how to use the pointer. Oh, right there. 5 feet from the south property line, 3 feet from the rear property line, and 2 feet from the north-facing property line. As you can see in the above image here, equivalent and similar parcel sizes exist in the surrounding area, similar to this size, as the creation of these parcels was consistent with the pattern of development at the time. On November 27, 1979, the then homeowner of the parcel received approval for a variance request to build a deck addition that you see here that would essentially develop a larger footprint and would encroach on the side yard setbacks to the same extent as the existing manufactured home. That was approved in 1979. Site photos that the applicant provided, as well as what staff provided for a site visit. As you can see by these images, the site has been cleared per Res 230941. As far as December 18th, 2023, the existing manufactured home and the deck addition were both demolished, and the building division verified that the demolition had occurred according to plan. So the variance in 1979 kind of has a moot point, except the fact that the deck had been approved for existing encroachment within the setbacks to the same extent. The photographs also, if you can see this, depict the narrowness of the site. As you can imagine, the 0.69 acre in size is a very small lot. And as you can see in the bottom right, an example of what a future dwelling may look like in the future. This is just a proposal at this point. The proposed site plan by the applicant provided during the project review period, depicting how the newly proposed footprint brings the parcel into more conformance than the approved variance in 1979. The variance would be 5 feet from the side yard setbacks and 5 feet from the rear, essentially a 20-foot variance to the rear setback and a 5-foot variance to both side yard setbacks, bringing the structure into more conformance than previously approved. Staff requested comments from all agencies with jurisdiction. It is understood that no concerns were raised by any of the agencies with jurisdiction. However, it is important to note that at time of development, the applicant will be required to comply with the requirements of both the building department and the fire district with jurisdiction at time of development. Public comments, there were 7 public comments in opposition. Mainly the concerns were raised with regard to a lack of privacy and a potential to create a fire hazard. Let me see here. Essentially, through staff analysis for our review of the project, many of the surrounding parcels in the area were created prior to the establishment of the minimum lot size setbacks, and so it created essentially a small lot size. Staff finds the development of a single-family dwelling is consistent with the pattern of development in the area. And as you can see, an undue hardship exists because of the natural characteristics of the site, the small lot size, the narrowness of the site. The hardship is not self-imposed as the parcel was created prior to 1973. Limited space for development. Request is not in conflict with the public interest, and the way that the staff had determined that was that the developing the parcel with a single-family dwelling is compatible with the existing neighborhood and development pattern within the area. That's all staff has at this time, and I stand for any questions that you have.
I don't have any at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, our applicant, Dawn Carr.
Hello, I'm Dawn, and I'm the one requesting on the 34293 North Hollyhock Street. And I've written, I also, I don't know if it's better to present this now or just put it into record, but I did kind of what he had done as well, showed the prior footprint and what would be constructed new, and showing that it is further within the property lines than what has been approved and been there before. So it'd be less impactful than what was actually standing there prior.
Okay.
I don't know if that's better too.
We'll put it into the record.
Okay, perfect. And then I also wrote some notes so that I wouldn't forget any points. So I'm going to kind of read more than I'm going to make statements, but I just like to ask everybody that in alignment with the staff's recommendation for their approval and support as requested for this updated variance for the property located at 34293 North Hollyhock in Bayview. The hardship was previously had been validated, as he stated before, by the prior variance granted on the old structure. The new variance would move the structure setbacks further from the property lines than the old structure and previous variance, which allowed for allowance of reconstruction in the same footprint. The following is to help clarify and aid with a more complete picture and provide for better understanding in reference to the comments and conditions associated with the variance request. The old structure was there, and the state of the property included the very old 1971 mobile home that he spoke about that had a full-length enclosed deck living space attached to the front of it. It was located, as shown in the picture, 3 feet from the back property line, 2 feet from the left property line, even though all the documentation shows 5. You pull a ruler on it, it was actually 2. And then the other property line was 2 as well. So both sides were 2 and the back were 3. The entire structure actually set at a 2-story level already. Height, it was supported by posts, a platform, rocks, dirt, and fill underneath. The entire structure was covered further by another further reaching roof that extended over both of those. And it actually had an open, and it's not predicted on anything, and it wasn't authorized, but it actually had a lean-to on the front of it as well, which was even further encroaching before. So we're trying to keep it better than it was before and do less impact than it was before. The old structure and property were in a very severe state of disrepair and lack of care, and it presented not only just an eyesore in the community, which when I was looking at the property, I can't believe how many neighbors came to me and said, "Can you believe this place?" And I said, "Well, can you believe it might go away?" So, but it was also a real health hazard and fire hazard because there was so much overgrowth around the property, you literally could barely make it down the left-hand side. You could not get down the right-hand side or to the back because it was so overgrown with foliage, and some of that was like blackberry bushes and stuff with thorns and whatnot on it. So you couldn't access it unless you actually physically went in and cut or removed the foliage to even get back there. So between the property was also 2 very large well, there was actually 3 very large trees, old pine trees that were very diseased around the property edges because it had just been left. 2 of them were actually growing, but in the back on the property edges, and those have been removed to prevent and further aid in the help of fire prevention. It's a much cleaner lot and much safer lot than it was before. There was an accumulation of garbage, woods, plastics, metal debris, miscellaneous items, dead animals, animal waste, and animals residing on top of between the roof structure and the structure below, in the building, and underneath the building. So it actually, when you got close, it had a very foul odor, and it was further deteriorating the appearance and condition of the property and structure. The lot is now clean and bare. The back 35 feet of the property, as you probably saw in the picture, is dirt, and the front 25 has actually been gravelled for parking and for stormwater. So, and in the future, I'd like to, there's the picture. I'd like to put green down the sides to help with that as well. You know, put the foliage back in, but maintain foliage. All the utilities on the property have also been updated. So there was an overhead power line that came across the public road, which was actually kind of low, and then it came into almost like the middle front of the property. So we took that out, we ran it down and brought it up the left side property line, the south side property line, so it's along the bank. And then we also put a traffic rated cover over the septic or the sewer container, and then we also put an underground meter so that the water, getting the meter of the water wouldn't be a problem either. So all the utilities have been updated and redone, and they're all sitting on the left-hand side of the property, on the property line. So they're more contained and all consolidated in one area now. There's already been a very large amount of expense and work put into the property to improve not just the sanitation access, but fire prevention, safety, and appearance. The work done has been of great benefit to the adjacent property owners and surrounding area, which I've also received comments on as well. The update and variance would be a further benefit to the adjacent parcels, being it's placing it further from the back and side property lines than the older structure and providing more space around the structure for an improved appearance. The new structure would also be a tremendous improvement over the old with the new building codes, because the old mobile home and the wooden structure was just tinder waiting to go up. It was in really bad shape. And it will be more in line with the properties, the homes and the structures, and along with the upgrade improvements that are occurring in the area. So as you drive through the area, you've got really old stuff, and you've got stuff where people are not creating mansions, but they're making nice properties, nice single-family homes where it's a much better view and a much better look than what's been there before. The variance I'm requesting, we've kind of went over, but is 5 feet from the south property line, which is actually 2 now. So it's staying at the 5 feet that it currently is on the map. It'll come in 3 more feet on the other side. That's actually 2. It'll come in 3 more feet on the north or right side, and then the back that's currently sitting at 3 feet will come to 5 feet. So it'll be further away yet than what's currently was there. And then I am looking to comply with the front 25 feet space in the front, so there is room to get off the road and park and do other things as well. These changes center the new structure on the lot, increasing the space on the sides and providing a more functional use of the lot, and also makes it more aesthetically pleasing, benefiting the adjacent properties, the neighbors, the community, and a whole. It just gives a better appearance. The new structure would be 40 feet wide by 30 feet deep, closely resembling the neighbors' properties. The structure would have an enclosed garage at ground level with a living area and a covered deck over the garage on the second level. This rather than an elevated living structure with open space underneath. This design change will better accommodate parking on the lot, provide for concealed storage, prevent animal infestation, and improve the neighborhood appearance. I'd like to address the comments that were received, in the mailing directly, just so there's further understanding on what's behind them. I want to say this. I know I've talked to all my neighbors, and the property owners. I'm sure they probably don't know or had never went out and put a measuring tape to what was sitting there before. So some of the comments are made, but not made based on actual measurements or facts. So keeping that in mind, I say the surrounding property owners had knowledge prior to purchasing or building in the area that this was a dense neighborhood, as well as being aware of the location of the structure to the property lines. The old surface, the old structure, the variance set closer to property lines than what is currently being requested. And that home that was there has been there like 50 years. So it's not like it wasn't there before they came in. It was one of the existing ones that was there from the very beginning. There are several parcels that when the map he had up there earlier, where he showed the parcels in the area, there are several in that immediate area that are the same or similar sizes. You can see there's a lot of small parcels in the area, and with homes and structures on them. Many of the updated and remodeled properties have been issued variances. I have one diagram of this that shows where all the different variances have been issued as well, because you almost have to, with the lot sizes that are there, you almost have to have a variance to do anything. So to address the comments about the lot there was a comment about the lot being too small to build on. I'd ask that you please notice that the comment also states that both lots, theirs and this one, are the same size. That this individual's lot has a home and garage addition that covers more area and is further reaching than the variance being requested. The fire hazard mentioned was not a concern for the fire district after they did a walking review, and was tremendously improved by the removal of the extreme amount of foliage overgrowth and the 2 large deceased pine trees that were allowed to grow up between the properties. Privacy will be less of an issue, as the new structure will be further from the property line than the old structure, and there's no plan to have low height or eye level viewing placed on the backside of the structure, as the old structure actually did have. So I think that addressed all of those in that comment that was from one of the neighbors. And then to address the comment about the setback remaining at 10 feet, I ask again that you please notice the record and diagram document shows that this setback is 5 feet, was 5 feet, and is actually measured 2 And the new variance leaves the setback remaining at the 5 feet that was there or recorded, thus leaving the setback remaining where it was, or actually further away from the property line than the old structure that had been there for roughly 50 years. So again, I think, that they just didn't know, I wouldn't know, looking from a neighbor's, how far it was sitting away. I don't know that they realized that this is actually going to be further from the lines than what they had been looking at for 50 years. So there were a few other oppositions, but they were just boxes checked, and they were all, I looked up the addresses, they were all in not the immediate area, not even on the same road. So I don't think there would be much impact or effect on those properties as a whole. And to confirm the building development comment, all construction will meet the standard code for requirements. And then to address in the comments, there was a traffic mitigation access during construction comment because the property size. I wanted to explain, the property actually sits in the center of a very short, private, low-traffic road, literally in the center. There's four properties on either side. So, and most of those properties are full in length, and you'll see it on the diagram. They're all fuller length except for the one on that's behind me, and then the 3 on the far end. Most of those all have access off of Barn Hill. That's their main access, where they're access to their house or their garage or whatever is on that side, and it's not off of Hollyhock. So a lot of it's eliminated just because that isn't their main access to their house anyway. And then what it isn't eliminated by that is the people come in on the side that's closer to their property on Hollyhock anyway. So with sitting in the middle, there shouldn't be much traffic problems at all. And then during construction, the other thing I wanted to address was they were saying that I definitely needed to, let them know if the road was going to be blocked or anything like that. And there should be the 25 by 50 foot section on the front of that property to set building materials. So when we did demolition, we had a huge train car size thing that they got the backhoe, whatever you want to call it, the lifter thing, and they were putting it in the bin. And both of those fit in that area. So my thought is there's probably going to be space to set materials as well as parking, and then also for the dirt that, for the footings or whatever to dig and put those out. And then I've also been working with everybody I've used so far has been local in the Bayview area, and they also have their own site where they store stuff and keep their stuff. So it's not like I'm going to have a lot of construction materials sitting on the site anyway. They'll store them in their locations or their space where they have them. So I think that basically covers it. To summarize, the new updated variance requested actually moves the structure further from the property lines than the old structure footprint, and is aimed to create a new dwelling that improves the overall functional use and appearance of the property, lot, and structure. I kindly ask for your support, advocacy, and approval of this updated variance. This variance will not only benefit myself as a property owner, but also contribute to the betterment, appearance, and progression of the adjacent properties, neighborhood, and the community as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Not right now. Do you want to submit the
Yes,
drawing
please.
for?
Submit that and this too. Well,
Thanks. Okay. Do we
Read
have?
into record as HE 3001.
Thank you. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No one on Zoom but staff.
Okay. As I always love it when I get a chance to go to Bayview because it's a very interesting community.
yes, it is.
You must have had incredible vision and creativity to look at your acquisition of this property and see what you might be able to do with it.
Thank you. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping it's going to, again, I really do want to improve it. I keep good care of my properties, and I like to make it look better.
Is this a site where you intend to live?
Yeah, as I'm getting older and I'm looking towards retirement.
I guess we need you to.
Sorry. As I'm getting older and looking towards retirement, I'm looking to downsize and have less to maintain and take care of. So the ultimate goal might not be within the next year or two, but the ultimate goal is going to be to downsize and retire there where I'm close to the water and less area space to take care of.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our hearing this evening on VAR 23-0012.
You'll have to come and have a drink on the deck if we get there.